Good morning. We have ourselves the world's ugliest bookcase, and today we're going to try to restore it. I think we can do it. Well, good morning and welcome to Memphis Monday 385, our 21st week of year 8. Last week we built us a couple of bookcases for a friend of mine who's a first grade teacher, and she gave us an example of an ugly bookcase. She wanted 2 copies of that, just not ugly. So we did that, and but I told her, I said, you know, I like to keep that thing and restore it, because what I really like to do is restore stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take that throwaway bookcase and try to work some magic on it. I don't know if we'll be successful, but my confidence is pretty high. Okay, let's knock off the chit chat and get to work. Here are the cabinets we did last week for part of the backstory, which are an exact copy of the one we're working on today. But why would you want those if you can have this? You know, this thing's got some history, you know, put together with screws, nails, butt joints. Perfect. My notion is I want to take it apart. And I may have to use some stripper on it to find how the joinery works. Let me go offline for a minute and try to figure out a plan. But the big plan is to take it apart. So that's my goal. We'll see if I can figure that out. Okay, those are galvanized screws. I was worried that they put it together with drywall screws, and that wouldn't have been good. But that's the first encouraging sign. It looks like the screws are. Screws up in here, holding the center brace in. Uh-oh, look at here. They didn't use glue. What's holding that on? Is that paint? The paint is so thick that it's acting like a rubber hinge. Check this out. The paint is so thick, this piece of wood has been held on by a bead of paint. So that tells me it's latex paint, and they didn't use glue. Let's cross our fingers and hope they didn't use glue on the rest of it. I'm still thinking this thing was commercially made. One of the reasons, I mean, it's kind of odd that the back is not set in a rabbet, and they attach the back with nails. See the nails. But look how evenly spaced the nails are. There's 5 nails there, 5 nails there, 5 nails across the back, 3 nails neatly in line right there. It almost tells me that some kind of factory or commercial workshop somewhere was doing this, and that was his pattern. Okay, let me get those nails out and try to figure out the rest of the joinery. Now the back was put on with these round-headed ring shank nails. See, I don't think a guy in his these are the exact if I was going to nail this on the back, this is the nails I would use. They're galvanized, small ring shank nails with a big head. I don't think of a guy in his garage would do it this way. And one of the reasons that pattern, I was making a big deal about the pattern of those nails, is that means that the rest of the fasteners are going to be in some sort of order. And I was right. I scraped off the paint here, and here on the top, and I found these little plugs. Now these are plugs, they're not dowels. I can drill the plug out, and then behind it should be a screw. Let's test that theory. Now, danger is I pushed too hard and messed up the head of that screw. I'll tell you my mistake. Whenever you put these plugs in, you got to put glue in there, and that glue gets in the screw head and fills up the gap in there, so that your screwdriver head won't fit in there. So I just cleaned that one out. Let's see if that theory works. And it does. And now that I've learned this, whoever built this was orderly, I was able to just figure out, the even positions here and scratch off a little paint, and there they were. These things through the, I need some new planer blade, so I went ahead and ran this through the thickness planer to get that paint off of it. It's going to ruin the blades, but they're ruined anyway. But I've figured out some of the mystery on why parts of this thing really seem professional and other parts not. That's exactly 48 inches. I mean, to a frog hair. And the width is exactly 12 inches to a frog hair. And these are glued up pine panels. And here's the mystery solved. I found these exact panels that are exactly 48 by a foot, specifically designed to make little bookcases. I went ahead and bought this panel because I wanted to match this exact wood because we're going to add a little base to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through the table saw and just trim off these. Just take a skim cut on these edges and get this paint off the edges. It doesn't matter because I'm going to add trim to the front, so the width will end up staying the same. Okay, we're kind of using the same design as we used to build these. We've got to put a rabbet in the top of the side here to receive the top. We need a dado at this position, a dado at that position, and then we need a dado on the bottom of the middle shelf, and we need a dado on the top of the bottom shelf. These two shelves, this shelf and this shelf, have already been cut 1/4 of an inch narrower so that the back will fit in a rabbet all the way around. So the sides and the top will have a rabbet. And there'll also be a bottom piece down here that'll have a rabbet also. One more thing. Remember I said we're going to put legs on our addition we're doing right now. You know, to me this thing looks like it's just missing something. Like just sits down on the ground. And I found some more evidence. Let me show it to you. This is the bottom of the bottom shelf. And you can see that when this thing was originally built, they put some kind of wheels or casters on it, but then subsequently took them off. Well, we're not going to put casters on it, but we are going to put little feet on it. Okay, these are the sides, and we're going to get a little tricky here. You can see where those plugs were we drilled out. What we're going to do is we're going to put our dado right across those plugs. Those plugs were drilled about halfway through, so we'll just put our dado about halfway through right there, and that'll hide those plugs. Same with the bottom down here, and we'll do it on both sides. The width of our stock is 11/16. So that tells me I can probably set my stacked dado head cutter up to 3/4, and I should have a pretty good fit. Let me experiment a little bit. Okay, I got the dados in here. This will be for the bottom shelf and the mid shelf. What I got to do now is put a rabbet along here, which would be identical to the dado, except it'll be right on the edge. And it'll look like this. And then the top will fit right in that, right into that groove, right into that slot. And it'll be flush up here at the top. Now, last two milling operations, I've got to put a rabbet on the sides and the top. And the sides, of course, are a mirror image. And to keep them getting messed up, I like to put them together the way they're going to be on the cabinet and then mark it with a pencil where the rabbet's going to go. That way I don't get confused. My setup is with a sacrificial fence raised up the width I want my rabbet, and then set my depth here, and I want about 1/4 of an inch. Got the trim on. The original didn't have this trim. It just had that bottom trim. So we added this. Okay, now let's turn it over and worry about putting the bottom on it, or the back on it. Remember a few minutes ago I said that the top and the sides were going to be about 1/4 of an inch wider than the shelf and the bottom shelf. And the reason is because we put a rabbet along the inside of the sides and the top for our backing material to fit flush, and so that way everything sits flush. On anything like this, the gusseting effect of the back will just really make it super strong. And if you have shelves and stuff in there, that's even better. I've drawn lines here that trace out the center lines of the center brace, the bottom shelf, and the middle shelf. And I'll put staples along there. I'm using 5-inch 5/8" staples, and that'll just make this thing indestructible. We can stand it up now and see what we have so far. Now we're going to solve this problem where it looks like it's just sitting. You know, it's sitting down on this piece of trim right here. It wasn't designed that way, we discovered. Let's review that. On the bottom, you can see where they had small caster wheels. Not caster wheels, casters, in all four corners. Now what I suspect is those look like awful small casters. You know, there's probably carpet and stuff on the floor and everything else, and it wasn't rolling around right. So they just took them off. Well, we're not going to put casters on there. We're going to put, you know, little flared, angled legs. And when I say splayed legs, this is what I'm talking about. Here's the front view. You can see the legs kind of angled out to the outside. And on the side view, same thing. And here on the projection, you can see a broader view of it. And I think the term splayed simply means it's a compound angle. To get that angle to the outside on the front and outside on the side takes a complicated cut right there. That we're not going to do it complicated, that we're going to do it simple. So that was a drawing. Here's the real world. Here you can see on the side view how the angle of the legs go out this way and out this way, so they're flared to the outside, and that's on the side view. And then here on the front view, you got the same thing. They're angled, they're splayed out. And that's where the compound angle comes in, because they're angled, you know, they're angled out in two different directions. So you have what's called a resultant angle, which is, you know, these are angled out 7 degrees. This one's angled out 7 degrees. So that makes this angle here when you put those two angles together, you get a different angle. But I promised to show you how to do this simply, and let's go over and look at that. First thing you do is you cut your stock with these two angles, these two parallel angles, both going in the same way. And one of them will provide the parallel surface to the floor, and the other will be a parallel surface to the piece. And it'll be flared out 7 degrees. Now this is how you do crown molding. Now you take your piece, your wood, and you lay it flat on the deck of your saw and lean it up against the fence, and then you cut your 45-degree angles. But we're not going to do it that way. I've invented a jig that has these 7-degree angles built in. And the beauty of that is that I can put my stock in leaning backwards. So what happens when you're doing this, sometimes you can't exactly tell If it's leaning against the fence, you know, that's going to be the outside, and you need to be able to exactly predict where this angle cut is going to be, and you can't see it because it's leaning against the fence. Well, I got this system, this jig here, where I can lean it away from the fence at 7 degrees and then cut my 45-degree angle right here. Let's give that a try. Okay, now I put it up on my piece and get it right where I want it. Now I can mark exactly where I want that, cut. I want it to come out right there. And then I can put how I want that cut there so I don't mess it up. Let's go to the jig. Now if it were leaning against the fence, see, it's leaning towards me. If we flipped it around and leaned it against the fence, I wouldn't be able to see that exact mark that we put on our piece. With this jig, I can lean it backwards and line my saw up on that mark we made. Let's try this theory. Now, another thing I like about this system is the safety aspect of it. I don't have to hold anything in place with my hands. I can clamp it right to the jig. And I made the jig nice and stout so I could clamp things to it and it wouldn't move. I'm holding the legs on with pocket screws. No glue. Well, here's a look at the underside. We got the pocket holes in. Each corner is reinforced with a steel plate. I usually reinforce these corners with a block of wood, which I glue in that corner. But I decided to go with metal this time because I didn't want to glue it. Okay, let's actually make the legs now. Here's the leg look we're shooting for. I'll show you how we do that. The thing to remember is that these feet have to be, you know, the same. These distances here, these angles, you know, they have to be duplicate on both sides. Otherwise, it looks stupid. It can be random, but as long as it's the same on all four corners. I'll show you how I do that. First thing I do is I carefully draw, put a straight edge on here, some distance from the bottom. And that distance again is random. That's just 3/4 of an inch. Just make sure it's the same on all. And this will define the deepest part of your cut. Okay, then take the straight edge off. Now these measurements again are made up. I just picked them for convenience. That's 4 inches. But you can make it 5, you can make it 3, you can make it 2, as long as they're all the same for all 4 legs. So that's 4 inches for the bottom and 6 inches for the top. Mark that. And then pick some kind of a radius. And it wouldn't have to be a radius. You could also make it a straight line. But the problem, if you make it a straight line, it's going to conflict with this angle here. So I just picked this coffee cup here as a radius and mark it. And I go through that procedure on both ends. And then you simply cut the leg out with a jigsaw. I have cut these out, before I installed them, but then there's always a chance that you're going to mess the measurements up and have to readjust down here. And it's if you don't have too big an angle on your legs, it's just as easy to do it with a jigsaw. Well, there's the look we're going for. These legs just totally transform it. It looks like a different piece. Okay, our last woodworking portion, we need to round over the trim here. So let's get to it. I'm staining it with natural stain. Instead of hiding this distressed pine, we're just going to own it and make it as visible as possible. Here's the stain I'm using. Semi-transparent natural. I'll finish staining it and we'll take a look at it. Well, that does it for Memphis Monday 385. Today we restored the world's ugliest bookcase. We stripped off all the old paint down to bare wood. We left some remnants to give it that distressed look. Should be, got some little spots here and there. We even have a little spot on the side. Kind of, there's some. We added the legs and the trim. We kept the dimensions exactly the same. We actually used the old plug holes as a guide for our dados. Real satisfied with this project. And that does it for Memphis Monday 385. Well, it does for Memphis Monday 385, week 21. Today we restored that the world's ugliest bookcase. showed you can use a sander or a planer to take the paint off. It will destroy your planer blades, but if your planer blades, you're about ready to take them off and throw them away anyway, it doesn't matter, and that's what I did. I'm just amazed how those wheels, not the wheels, but the legs, transformed that thing. It just looks like a whole different bookcase. But you know what's going to happen. I've got to do it, and that is I got to go back to those bookcases from last week and put those legs on. I won't be able to sleep at night unless I do that. But then that's a dilemma because I don't have a lot of time right now. So that may be next week's Memphis Monday. So if you don't want to see me put those legs on that, on that project next week, now would be a good time to go on vacation. But anyway, I think it turned out really well. I think it's probably my best restoration this year for sure. All right, so like, favorite, share, and all the stuff you do on the internet. But most important, make sure you're back here next week for another exciting Memphis Monday. Thanks for playing along.